As Central New York enters this defining moment, Onondaga County sits at the center of it all.
The promise of Micron, an historic investment of billions of dollars.
Changes are near for I-81 and the flow of traffic to and through our community. Neighborhoods, businesses, and malls are transforming.
Our children are confronting challenges we never before imagined.
Tonight, in downtown Syracuse, two men seeking to lead Onondaga County and Central New York through the next 4 years lay out their visions for you.
Well, good evening. Welcome to our 2023 Onondaga County Executive Debate. I'm Matt Mulcahy.
I'm Michael Benny. We're joined tonight by the two men who are running for the job of Onondaga County Executive. The man who currently holds that job, incumbent Republican Ryan McMahon.
And his challenger, Democratic legislator Bill Kinne. Before we start, these are the rules the candidates agreed to for tonight's debate. We'll run through them quickly for you. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening remarks. We'll then get to our questions. Candidates will have 1 minute for their responses, and if a rebuttal is needed, it will be granted, depending on what the question and the issue is. Candidates will also have time for closing remarks at the conclusion of the debate.
Now that we've set the rules, let's hear from the candidates in the race for Onondaga County Executive. We held a coin toss just before we got started this evening, and legislator Bill Kinne, you'll be delivering your opening remarks first. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, folks. I want to thank Central for having this debate and have the voters have a choice, see a clear choice. That's really why I'm running, to give the voters a choice. I'm a man of faith. I'm a family man. My wife and I have 4 children. I love this community, and I believe in this community, and I believe in helping people in this community, and I want to work hard for the whole county.
Thank you, Legislator Kinne. Appreciate that. County Executive McMahon, your 1 minute opening remark.
Well, thank you again, Matt, Michael, Megan, Sean, the whole entire CNY Central team. Thank you. Bill, thank you again for being here. It's a great opportunity to talk about what's happening in our community and where we're going forward. And if you think about the last 4 years, what we've all been through, we've been through unprecedented times, some of them very scary. My administration walked into the first full year of our 4-year term having to deal with the 100-year public health pandemic. And we didn't waver as a community. We came together, we built partnerships, and out of those partnerships, at one moment, we knew we would get through that dark moment. And we put together a comprehensive plan to address the needs of our people, modernize our infrastructure, and to invest and be ambitious, because we believe unapologetically about you and the future of this community and our ability to compete. And with that plan, we have executed. And we are seeing economic opportunity, quite frankly, like no other time in our community's history. And I look forward to talking about it today with you.
We appreciate you both being here. Let's get to the conversation now. It was 1 year ago the President of the United States came here to Central New York to announce to the world that Micron had chosen Central New York as a place to invest potentially $100 billion in a microchip manufacturing facility. 20 years is a long way off. I'm wondering what's realistic to see in the next 5 years that will prove that this region is heading in a different direction? And that question goes to you, Mr. County Executive.
Yeah, this is about execution now. Execution on a vision where we could compete for jobs throughout the United States, but also the world. And through the selection process of what was Project Yankee, which eventually became Micron, we put together a bipartisan site attraction team at the end of the White Pine story. And with the help of the New York State and the help of the United States government as well, the White Pine Business Park being the most attractive business park, mega site in all the country. So that's how we got here. How do we move forward? We need to get the site ready through the environmental reviews, which is happening today. We need to start construction, and we'll see on average 5,000 construction jobs. But really our countywide comprehensive plan, the first one in over 25 years, is the roadmap for how we execute on this amazing opportunity in front of us. Center-driven development, and all of the above housing strategy, modernizing the way we move throughout our community, continuing to invest in what makes us unique and different, our green spaces and our blue ways. That's the roadmap.
Let me take that question in a different direction for you, Legislator Kinne. We all agree that if Micron can happen to its fullest extent, it would be a great thing for this community. But how do you convince voters that making a change in leadership at the head of Onondaga County is the right thing to do just as this project's getting underway?
Well, you know, if you watched the video that the current county executive made with taxpayers' dollars, you would think that he was the only one who had anything to do with the Micron event. In actuality, it was hundreds of people, and I look forward to working with those people once I'm elected. The Micron, like the county executive said, is a game changer for this community, but I want to make sure it helps everyone. It's got to impact everyone in this county. It should help everyone in this county. So I want to work with the partners to see the project move forward, and I think, you know, it will move forward. They've already invested money in the community, so I think it's a positive thing.
A quick follow-up on that, County Executive McMahon. That video, we did some reporting on it too. Do you think you went too far in taking personal credit? We know you mentioned other players had a part in bringing that here, but how would you like to address that tonight?
Yeah, I think the video that's being referenced was a video that was done, a marketing video, and it was done in October of last year. And that video is used for businesses and companies that are looking to come here and invest, specifically the supply chain. The reality is Onondaga County is on the map nationally and internationally, and people want to understand how. And the White Pine story, the ending of that story is Micron. There's no way to write that story without the work that was done by my administration, where we took all the risk. We were the starting pitcher in a process, and at some point, we gave the ball over to our middle reliever, the state of New York. And then they did what they could control with their incentive package. And then at the end of that process, Leader Schumer took the ball, and he was the closer, and the president signed the U.S. CHIPS Act. So there's no way to tell the White Pine story without the risk that happened from my administration.
Was Project Yankee the secret name for it?
That was the code name, Project Yankee.
Not to go off the rails here, but that, so people would call each other and say, we got to talk about Yankee?
Correct. And remember, when the White Pine started, we weren't working with Micron. We were working with Intel. Micron was the end of the process, and so each project has their specific code name because you're under non-disclosure agreements.
Got it. Let's stay on Micron for one more question, because the magnitude of this project as presented by you and the other leaders who have come to town, including the President of the United States, the magnitude is massive. It's not something that I think that most people can truly understand / even fantasize about, because it's nothing that's ever happened in our community. But I do wonder, in the short term and the long term, we're talking about driving Route 31 on a regular Wednesday. That's an old county road. Traffic is a nightmare. We already have trouble filling teacher positions. There aren't enough primary care physicians in our county, much less our region. Is it possible this is too much to handle? Is it possible that we couldn't handle it?
I don't believe so, Michael. I think overall it's the greatest opportunity any community has ever had. It's the largest private sector investment in the history of the United States. But to your point, there's going to be challenges and growing pains. And that's why it's so important that we execute. Workforce development. It's not just about building the workforce for the semiconductor industry, which will be the memory technology hub in North America, but it's about doing just what you suggested. Medical, right? We put out a nursing scholarship this year where we are working with our medical infrastructure, 130 new nurses going to school. They will then graduate and work here. We know we're going to need to execute on lots of other industries as well on workforce partnerships. But we are so laser focused. This partnership that has been developed with government and the private sector knows what they need to do to get these things done. And we're going to do it. But execution is what is needed moving forward.
Legislator Kinne, the execution, does it concern you?
No, it doesn't. I have complete faith in my abilities to form a good team, a team that will be able to tell me no when they need to, a team that will be energetic and want to see this community like me, see it grow. There's always going to be challenges with anything. A project this size is probably, doubled at least. But we can do this. We got a good community. We got good people in this community. I believe in the community. I think we'll come out fine.
Let's move on to the other mega issue that our communities face really over the last 15 years now, that is now coinciding with Micron, and that's the changes of 81 through downtown Syracuse, through DeWitt, Cicero, south of the city. On 81, we're already seeing some of the construction delays as the project starts to get underway with some construction, ultimately with the tear down of the elevated section through downtown. Isn't it time for the person who leads Onondaga County to bring the community together and say, enough with any opposition, legal or otherwise. Let's work together to have the best reimagining of transportation possible. How would you accomplish that?
I would bring the players together, because I think you're right. I know many people that don't want the grid, but that's what we're having, right? That's what the state wants, that's what we're doing. So we got to bring people together, and we got to talk to them. We got to figure out a way to get people to buy into it, because we've waited too long. We've waited way too long. I'd like the state to do more in housing. I think they're behind the 8 ball on that. But we can bring these people together. We can solve it. People got to accept the fact that this is the road we're on.
County Executive, is there something you could do from your seat that says to those who are in opposition, we recognize your opposition, but now let's all get in the room to design this as best we can to make everything work?
Yeah, I think, Matt, the role we played in this role since being county executive was we weren't going to really advocate for a preferred outcome, but our role representing everybody, right? As county executive, I represent the city of Syracuse. I represent the towns and the villages, was to look at whatever the project was and to understand what the mitigating factors would be. What are the unintended consequences? And then to advocate fiercely to address those. One of the ways which we've done that is we allocated spending in the budget to have our own study to look at what mitigating factors are there, some of these unintended consequences. Then we're going to have honest conversations with the state of New York. But overall, I think that we know what the project's going to be. It's very hard to get some of the legal challenges from interested parties to just go away, but that's what we've been doing. It's a large infrastructure project. How can we develop workforce and create opportunity for businesses here? And that really doesn't necessarily impact the Micron project. Micron's much more interested in what happens to 81 and 41 out north. But overall, I do think the community's kind of turned the page on this issue.
It's interesting, in a way, a stamp of approval, in essence, from Micron's executive team that 81 will work itself out. We're not going to stop because 81 has any questions left.
Yeah,
right?
I can tell you, being the individual who was in every single conversation during that selection process, that the 81 project that we know had no bearing on Micron's decision. To Michael's point earlier, Route 31 improvements, Route 11 improvements, 481 improvements on Caudnoy, potentially a new 81 exit up north. These are all things that the environmental review will tell us needs to happen. Micron is very interested in what those solutions are.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So are all of us. So that's good to know.
That's going to be a big change.
Yeah. Other than Micron and 81, one of the biggest projects for Central New York that has been presented, that has been funded, it happened in this room as a matter of fact, is the plan for an aquarium at the Syracuse Inner Harbor.
Let's bring in our co-anchor colleague Megan Coleman now with a couple more questions specifically about the aquarium. Megan, we've been covering this for quite a while now, and what do you have to ask of these two candidates?
Yeah, people certainly have a lot of passion, a lot of skepticism on both sides here. 2 years ago, the current county executive proposed building an $85 million aquarium, as we know, for our community in Syracuse's Inner Harbor. It was met with both praise, support, and skepticism. And just last week, as you know, bulldozers were on site doing some of the site preparation work. So I'll start with you, County Executive. Why is it that this has been a passion project for you? Why do you think that an aquarium is the next best thing to move our community forward?
I think if you look at the history of the project, often people say, where does this concept come from? It came from Democrat Syracuse Mayor Tom Young. The same individual who had the vision for Armory Square and Franklin Square envisioned an aquarium at the Inner Harbor to create connections between Franklin Square and the new mall. And so when you look at it, we had one-shot revenue coming out of 2020. And so what project was there that we could fund that would help support the hospitality and tourism industry, would create jobs, construction jobs and full-time jobs, would be a piece of entertainment infrastructure and quality of life, would create opportunities for research and development and partnership with higher education, and create opportunities for STEM education for our existing children, but also neighborhood revitalization for that Inner Harbor, right? The ability to tell the story of the cleanup of Onondaga Lake and where Western democracy was founded on the shores of Onondaga Lake with the Haudenosaunee. This project checks all those boxes.
But are we 20 years behind in bringing an aquarium to our community? Is this old news?
No, that's not what the market study suggested. In the market study that was done by professionals who did the same thing for Boston's aquarium, and Baltimore's aquarium, and Atlanta, Georgia's, and Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee's, right? So the market study suggests that this will have over a $52 million economic impact and do everything that we just suggested it would. And again, that market study is outdated. That was done before the announcement of Micron, which will imminently lead to more private sector investment in this project and also population growth.
And to you, Bill Kinne, you have been a vocal skeptic of this project and critic. Why not bring something like an aquarium to our community as we start to see Micron and other industries move into the area to give people in the community more things to do?
Well, I'm not opposed to the aquarium. I like the idea of an aquarium. I don't like the way it's being handled, how it's being funded. And I love Syracuse, I love Onondaga County, but to compare Syracuse and Onondaga County with those cities that he mentioned is just ridiculous. We're never going to be a Boston. We can be a great place to live, but we're never going to be a Boston. I believe that 80% of the people in this community are against the aquarium because the way it was funded and because of so many other things that need to be handled that aren't being addressed. You know, I think the mayor, Tom Young, was a great man, a great mayor. He is a great man. But I'm not mistaken, for all those projects that the county executive mentioned, there was private money involved. He wants to get the private money at the end, you know, like if you build it, the private money will come. I don't think that's the way you do business. You get the private money up front, or at least can work with them and have a shared. This aquarium would have been a good idea, in my opinion, if there was more private money involved and a lot less public money. It's the taxpayers' money. They want housing, they want infrastructure fixed, they want schools, better schools, and they want better public safety. We need to work on all those things.
If I
Go
may
ahead.
respond,
Yeah.
We're not an either-or community, right? We make investments in all of the above strategy, right? We don't make investments in one area at the expense. We pay for county government through sales tax. That's a hard fact. That's a hard stop. What we need to do to fund all the programs that my opponent is suggesting, which we are funding, by the way, is we need to continue to create economic activity. Also, there's a difference here in vision. I believe we are good enough to compete with Baltimore and Boston and other parts of the country. And if we didn't believe that, we wouldn't have invested the way we did at White Pine, because we are now the hub for memory technology semiconductor manufacturing in North America, right? So there's a difference in vision here. And the reality is you can't get private sector investment in a project until they have a design. Our design is about 90% complete. It will be complete at the end of the year. We are going out for naming rights opportunities in the next few weeks, and then the private sector dollars come in. But this is entertainment infrastructure, quality of life infrastructure, just like the zoo, just like the convention center, just like the ballpark for the Syracuse Mets, just like the War Memorial for the Syracuse Crunch, just like the
on that,
amphitheater.
though, you've also taken pride in saying you're paying the $85 million in cash.
Correct.
A typical $85 million project, you wouldn't do that. You would have some kind of borrowing involved, maybe some private investment. Why do you find that to be a source of pride that you're paying cash for it and using that money just like that?
Well, because interest rates are about 7 or 8% right now, even with a high credit score rating county like we have. So why would we put on debt service and create more interest and cost the taxpayers tens of millions of dollars if we don't have to? And again, we had one-shot revenue because our administration managed the budget successfully coming out of the pandemic, and sales tax came back stronger than anticipated coming out of the pandemic.
But with inflation, prices are going up for everything. We are all paying more for groceries and other things in our lives. Can you say with confidence to the taxpayers today that $85 million will be the final number?
Yeah, that $85 million will be the number for the aquarium project from the public taxpayers, absolutely.
Legislator Kinne, you believe that?
No, I don't believe that at all. Look at all these aquariums across the country are nice. Almost every one of them lose money. They just are not profit centers. We need to increase our sales tax. I agree with 100% on that. But doing it on an aquarium is not the right way, especially the way he's doing it. I mean, people have a lot of things to do here already that we like, you know. Why isn't the zoo being expanded? If it's such a great thing, which it is, why aren't we expanding that? You know, the ballpark. The ballpark was built out in the north side. It's a great ballpark. I love baseball. But the ballpark should have been built downtown. It was another mistake this community made. I'd like to be the county executive that stops making these mistakes and working on bringing people here through having good housing and good jobs.
Thank you, both of you.
For the record, the ballpark just did have a $30 million expansion and the zoo also has had multiple expansions.
Would have been cool downtown, though, too, you're right. But that's a debate
have to
from
admit that.
about
Oh, I agree.
2 county executives
I wasn't
ago.
county executive then. I was a kid.
Yeah,
Can't blame you for that.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Thank you,
Megan,
Megan.
thank you so much. That got some heat, and we like it. Let's switch gears and talk about running the county and departments within it. Because as county executive, Mr. McMahon, you want to close the Jamesville Correctional Facility. The current sheriff, rather newly elected, does not. It's one example of county executive being in conflict with an elected sheriff. So I'm curious in your mind what the appropriate relationship between these two critical pieces of county government and public safety, what it is.
Yeah, so the sheriff department is a department of county government. That doesn't mean I'm not the CEO and responsible for the budget and or liability that comes. So let me give you an example for the public, because this is an inside baseball issue, right? The general public doesn't really look at these issues the same way they look at their taxes and look at economic development, jobs projects, right? The reality is today at Jamesville, there's 36 inmates. They are costing us, each inmate is costing us $1,500 per day. You can go to a Ritz-Carlton anywhere in the United States and spend that amount at that, right? We have over 80 employees for 36 inmates. At the same time, at the downtown jail, we don't have enough employees in our DSBA union. And so by bringing these two entities together, it's going to save millions of dollars. In addition to that, we have a Harrell Herring lawsuit that we signed off on, and we made commitments to the courts that we would get inmates to arraignments. When you are moving inmates from downtown to Jamesville because of a staffing issue, we can't get those inmates back for arraignments, which creates liability. So the mistake that has been made is that this wasn't done sooner, because the economics were there sooner, the lawsuit was there sooner, and again, it should have been done when Gene Conway was sheriff. But that doesn't mean because you get a new sheriff, you don't do what's right. And we'll get through this. The county legislature approved the policy, so it's the policy. The sheriff is suing. The courts will make their input in November. But overall, by bringing these together, we solve a workforce development issue. We get rid of liability, which is my job, and at the same time save the taxpayers millions of dollars each year.
Legislator Kinne, this relationship between county executive and county sheriff.
Well, I'm saddened to see it has deteriorated so much. I believe the sheriff started off with great intentions, but he was dealt a bad hand by the former sheriff. Listen, he keeps on bringing up Harrell Herring. Since Toby Shelley has been sheriff, they've missed 2 court appearances, but both of them were for medical. That's it, just 2. If we really want to solve this problem, why don't we expand Jamesville and put a courthouse up there? That way there's only one person traveling, a judge, and maybe their stenographer or whatever, and instead of all the sheriffs traveling back and forth. Closing Jamesville is the wrong way to go about it. I mean, you can't bring people down here. There's not enough room, and you don't want to build a 4th tower. Why should you build a 4th tower down here when you can do it up in Jamesville and there's more land? And besides, if you try building the 4th tower down here, you got to close booking in the kitchen. You have to spend money to get that from somebody's house. It just makes no sense.
Interestingly, hidden in all that is, we got to go to a break here, but there's fewer people in jail. That seems like that's progress, right?
Exactly. And I would say this, that it makes no sense to build a courthouse at Jamesville when you have one next door to the correction facility and we have capacity here. And even on my opponent's website, he says we should close down Jamesville and turn it into a mental health facility, which is something that certainly we could have discussions about.
Okay, maybe there's some common ground after all. Thank you both for that. We're going to take a short break. We have much more to get to in this debate.
Still to come, the mental health crisis, a good transition there, how the candidates plan to address the growing problem for children and parents in our community.
And the state of Onondaga County's failed malls. We'll hear from the candidates about some redevelopment projects that could get underway soon.
Welcome back to our CNY Central debate for Onondaga County Executive. We're coming to you from the historic seat of government in Onondaga County, and also justice, going back a long ways, Michael.
This building is incredible. We're here inside the legislative chambers, inside an old courthouse that was first opened in 1907. It took 5 years to build, and wait till you hear the price tag. It's a steal in today's money, $1.2 million.
Paid cash for it, too.
To build this gleaming facility. It was designed by noted architect Archimedes Russell, who is said to have drawn inspiration from the State House in Rhode Island. Inside, it's marble. There's so much marble and really, really ornate metalwork. Part of it really feels like a museum.
Yeah, using the staircase is an experience in itself. There are 7 hand-painted murals featuring local history going back into 1915. The building really got a lot of attention nationally because former President Teddy Roosevelt stood trial here on libel charges. He came here to this building to attend the trial. He was ultimately acquitted. So we're honored to be in this space tonight, and we thank everybody at Onondaga County for making this happen.
Yeah, so cool. This building's great. Okay, now we know where we are. Let's get to know some of the candidates better. We're calling this a rapid fire section. The responses we anticipate will be a little bit shorter, although they may be a little bit more illuminating. So Matt will take it away.
We'll start with Ryan McMahon. Give me 3 words to describe your character.
I think overall 3 words. I just said 3 words.
So it's not easy being first. Yeah.
I lost this coin flip. Certainly, I'm compassionate, driven, and tough.
Excellent.
Legislator Kinne.
Humble, caring, and a listener.
Let's stay with you. What are some criticisms you've heard of yourself that you've taken to heart? Not just the stuff that you hear, but the stuff that actually penetrates.
Well, I mean, a man I like and respect a lot is the former chairman of this legislature, Bill Sanford, and I think he made a good point. The first 7 or 8 years when I was down here, I let my emotions get the best of me, and I was a little bombastic, maybe is the word. So I think I've learned in trying to be a better person.
Mr. County Executive, the criticisms that you take to heart.
Yeah, I think overall at times when you look at the last 4 years, many have suggested at times that we're aggressive. And, I think that's fair. And I think, with balance, you need to look at when you're aggressive and when maybe you're a little too aggressive. And overall, it's tough to balance that when you come out of a public health emergency. But certainly those are things that we reflect on.
Let's go back a few years. We'll start this question with you. Do you remember why you first ran for office?
I ran for office. I love this community, and I've always been a Southside Strathmore kid. Went to Bishop Blood and went to Lemoyne, came back, wanted to serve my family. Service is in our family's DNA. We founded the McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center, and that commitment to service and family was there, and I thought this was a path that we could move forward in.
Legislator Kinne, do you remember why you first ran?
Yeah, I remember working at Green Hills Farms, and the former Judge Jim Tormey, who's in heaven now, would come in and we'd talk politics. He was a graduate of Corcoran High School like I was, and he wanted me to switch parties, but I refused to. And he gave me the name of a person to contact, and I started going to Democratic meetings. I've always helped neighbors out. Since I was a little kid, when the phone rang at my house, they'd say, "Mrs. Kinne, send please Billy over to do something," and that's what I did. And when it came time for running for the legislature, they couldn't find anyone to run against the incumbent, and I don't believe that's democracy. You got to have competition. So I ran, and with the help of my family and 5 friends, we won by 253 votes, and so here I am.
Tell me about a personal challenge that you've overcome.
Well, we lost a daughter. To health reasons, had a brain aneurysm. And as you can tell, I'm not quite over it yet, but you got to go on in life. I've been blessed with 4 daughters. I'm blessed with a wife that allows me to take phone calls at 10 o'clock at night from constituents. It's been hard. It's been a hard one, but I think I'm doing much better than I did the first year.
Thank you for sharing that. County Executive McMahon, a challenge, a personal challenge.
Yeah. I think overall, you're in these roles and you have families, and I think, your children aren't immune to the spotlight, the time away, right? And it impacts that. For me, during the pandemic, I got very, very sick and was impaired and really struggled to get through that moment, but also after that moment really struggled. And certainly my mental health was absolutely tested at times as well. So overall, when you see the impact on your kids, some of the impacts we went through over the last 4 years, challenging times.
For sure.
We'll give you a chance. You need a drink, or
I'm all set. Thank
you're
you.
good? Yeah, we appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, both of you, so honestly.
A difficult question. Here's a simpler one, kind of more out of body. Did President Biden win the 2020 presidential election?
He absolutely won the 2020 election. I mean, I am still confused as to how people could say that he hasn't. Even Republicans recognize that he won the election. So, to me, it's clear as day.
County Executive McMahon, did he
Yes.
win?
Yes.
Let's talk about where both of you fit within the political party that you are registered in and the line that you are running on. Let's start with County Executive McMahon. I suppose we could do an hour just on this. We could probably do it for the Democrats as well. Where are you in the Republican spectrum?
Yeah, I think I'm a moderate candidate, and I think very much on specific issues, you'll find yourself in line with the center or more on the right wing. I mean, obviously on national security issues, I think we're very much aware of what's going on in the world and the threats that brings to people, specifically in our country. And I think our country is sleeping a little bit right now, which is some of these threats. But overall, I think on balance, we govern in a way that listens to all sides of the political spectrums. And certainly, I think over my career, we've been more of the moderate centrist wing of the Republican Party.
Legislator Kinne, what kind of Democrat?
Well, I'm proud to be a Democrat, but we don't have all the answers. I think the extremes on both ends of the spectrum are wrong and is hurting our country. I've been blessed with a lot of support from people like Assemblyman Bill Magnarelli, but we haven't always agreed on issues. And some of my own party think I'm not liberal enough. They're entitled to that opinion, but I believe that the country wants to be in the middle on most issues. I certainly believe this community wants to be in the middle. So I strive to listen and learn and be in that middle as a moderate because, like I said, I think the extremes on both ends are really, really hurting our country.
And one more question in this section here, and I'm going to go to Legislator Kinne first. We're going to do letter grades for politicians, and then we'll do the same for the county executive. First, Congressman Williams, A through F, what grade do you give him?
D,
Senator Schumer,
B plus,
Senator Gillibrand,
C plus,
Governor Hochul,
B,
county executive, same order. First of all, Representative Williams.
Yeah, I'm going to grade them via impact on Onondaga County because I think that matters. Those are our constituents. I think the congressman's new, and I think I'd give him a B, and I think there's a lot of room to grow to a B plus by partnering on some of the key pieces of legislation that help our county.
Senator Schumer?
I think Senator Schumer's been a huge ally to this county. There's no doubt without the CHIPS Act, we would not have the Micron opportunity. I would give the senator an A minus.
Senator Gillibrand.
I think, again, active, also supported the CHIPS Act funding, as did CATCO. I'll probably be a B minus there, just because our offices don't work as often together.
And Governor Hochul.
The governor and I work together really strongly on economic issues. Another very big win today, TTM Technologies, $100 million investment, 400 new jobs. I think where I'm concerned about Albany is with the unfunded state mandates, $14 million. They illegally intercepted federal funds from us, potentially impacted our budget this year. I think I'll give the governor a B, but those are the issues that could jeopardize that score moving forward. We work great together on economics and jobs, but the state budget has hurt Onondaga County.
We appreciate that perspective in those grades. Appreciate that. We're going to take another short break. Stay with us for more discussion from key voters' issues, including the rise of crime, especially involving teens in our county. We'll go over what action needs to be taken.
Also, children grappling with learning loss. We know the mental health struggles. They're well documented. We're going to dive into those issues when we come back.
as we've come out of the pandemic, and that is concern over the mental health of our children.
There is no one who reports the news in Central New York who has done more of a deep dive on this and has done more to empower parents and, in some cases, schools to do more than Megan Coleman, and she's here with a question on this important topic.
Yeah,
Megan.
this is certainly a conversation that a lot of families have been having in our community over the last few years. We have spent years, in fact, documenting the mental health impact of children in our very own community. Hospitals, as we all know, were inundated with children during the pandemic who either had attempts at taking their own life or were thinking about it. In 2021, Onondaga County announced an investment of $5.5 million to increase mental health support services in schools, but some children continue to suffer in our community. So I'll start with the county executive because you took a lead on bringing some of that funding during the pandemic. What is the next step now to continue to support children in our community?
Yeah, I think overall what you're referencing is our three-tiered support initiative, which has gained national attention on this issue related to providing more social workers in all schools, tiered support to work with families and students, and then the third is full-blown mental health clinics, access where you can get providers to meet with children where they are in schools. And that's important, but there are gaps. And so I think this is the third year that we're funding it. We started out with American Rescue Plan funds for the first year. The second year was local dollars. Now we're in the third year. And we need to identify gaps, and we need to bring in more partners and create that infrastructure. We talked about workforce issues. Workforce in this space is a key gap potentially. But looking at other partners, philanthropic partners, to really look at full-blown assessments for our kids. This issue has hit many, many families, including my own. And so it's important that we stay on this. This is as important of an issue for our kids than anything else that's out there.
Yeah, and Bill Kinne, you talked so eloquently about losing a child under different circumstances, but you know all too well the pain of losing a child. Where are we missing the mark in Onondaga County to continue to support our children?
You know, that's a very tough question, but obviously the family structure has changed. And, you know, those two kids dying recently by the deputy sheriff, it's tragic. My heart goes out to those families. But, you know, what were they doing out at that time of the morning? I mean, I think we have to find a way to help families try to work with them to get them to be more involved in knowing what's going on. We have to do more with mental health. We have to do more social worker. I would give credit to the county executive for what he did. I think it's a little late and not enough, but it's a good program, and we definitely have to involve the private sector.
And County Executive, families still do complain that they will call to try to get into a provider and they just can't get in. The waiting lists are there to see therapists and mental health counselors, not just in the schools where some of those clinics are located, but also in our hospitals. What can you say to families who have no one to call on the other end?
Yeah, I think this is really a challenging workforce development issue coming out of a pandemic where you have your medical infrastructure that's extremely tired, and being able to recruit back in is critical. With our program for schools, we can help get services, but you need to look at the overall system, the gaps in the overall system, and what role does government play? Where can we have philanthropic partners come in and help us overall? If you're just trying to set up an appointment for one of your teens or one of your kids without going through our school-based program, you are going to be on a waiting list. So part of it is making sure that the districts are working with their parents to make sure they know what the resources are there. Now all districts have adopted this program finally. And then as this is really our third year in, really the first full year out of the pandemic, where are the gaps and where can we provide assistance? Resources aren't the issue right now. It's being able to figure out where the resources can be used effectively and appropriately.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Megan. Onondaga County is in the unique position of owning the vacant Shoppingtown Mall, as you know. If you've driven by, you know it looks absolutely terrible. There's graffiti, weeds growing everywhere. We've seen promising renderings of what could be. What can you do to have construction underway by next construction season? Bill Kinne.
Well, first of all, the property should never have gotten to the state it's in. The grass should have been cut, the weeds should have been pulled, the graffiti should be removed. We're the landowner now. We own that property, so we should take better care of it. You know, I know this involves a lot of hassles for the national companies and who owns the properties, but this is one of the times, I think, when we should have pressed eminent domain sooner. I don't like eminent domain, taking people's property, but look, that property needs help. It would help the community, and I think we should have acted on it sooner.
County Executive
Yeah, I
McMahon.
think the history matters and where we are, right? Because I'll give you the facts of where we are with this.
But by next
Yeah,
construction
sure.
season, could
So-
we see work there?
So remember where we were. We had the biggest absentee landlord we had. Only reason the county has control over that important site is because of my administration in partnership with the legislature giving us the ability to sue and win to take the property, and we did. Now you have a property that failed. It literally failed. We condemned the property. We did an RFP. A local group came forward. That local group was working very diligently to try to purchase the 2 parcels that they do not own on site. Benderson owns the Macy's. Sears is owned by a group, Transform. Those negotiations didn't go anywhere. There is an eminent domain public hearing in a week at the town of DeWitt. So the county IDA has green-lighted eminent domain. And so you should see site control by the end of 2024 for District East. And then they can start their project.
So it'll be ugly for another year.
It could go to court. You could see Benderson, you could see Transform, who promised me, by the way, they would work to find resolution. They weren't very honest about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of interests involved there, a lot of
Absolutely.
financial interests.
Great opportunity
Yeah.
to build a center, right? That goes with how we're going to bring housing online. Great opportunity there to create a new community.
Let's talk about something that Legislator Kinne brought up just a little bit here. In September, we saw the problems of widespread youth crime really come to a head when the county sheriff's deputy was caught on video shooting at 2 Syracuse teens who died at the end of a night of stealing cars, breaking into smoke shops. What do you see is happening in our culture where teens are seeing this type of crime as something they want to be involved with? Maybe it starts with stealing a Hyundai or a Kia and then seems to be a bit of a rampage and the worst of endings.
Yeah, I think overall there's a couple things related to this. One is the raise the age law, which basically incentivizes behavior with no consequences. And these gangs are very smart and they're very clever. And they know that if someone commits a crime and they are very young, they will get treated differently than you if you commit the crime when you're over 18. Hillbrook, which is our juvenile detention facility, which we run, which I'm in charge of, used to be something where you saw low-level offenses. Now, if you go into Hillbrook, these are all individuals who have committed heinous crimes, right? So overall, Albany needs to realize that some of the legislation passed, bail reform, raise the age, we have enough evidence to show where there's gaps and where we don't need to throw the whole concepts out, but where we can amend this so that we can give more tools to law enforcement and where the courts have more tools to make good decisions about where these individuals should go. There has to be consequences for the uptick in some of the quality of life crimes that we've seen related to thefts of cars specifically. We've seen violent crime go down, but those types of crimes go up drastically.
Legislator Kinne, do you think that a 14 or 15-year-old who's committing the crime is thinking about what Albany enacted?
I doubt it very much. Albany's intent was very good, but they missed the mark. No question about it, they missed the mark. Why are the kids, like I said earlier, why are they out late at night? You know, they shouldn't be out late at night, you know, you should be home. Or you should be, you know, getting ready for school. If it's school time, in the summertime, you should be getting ready to play something, to do something. The family structure is falling apart. Why is it falling apart? I don't know, but it's obviously falling apart. These kids are not paying a price, and they should pay a price, because whether you're 12 or 14, you do something wrong, you should pay a price. I think that, like I said, the state had good intent, but it's not working out the way they wanted it, and they need to go back and address some issues. There's no reason to allow anyone to stay out in the street if they've committed a crime that's heinous. I'm not talking about real heinous, like murdering somebody, but stealing someone's car, that's a personal thing. Breaking into a store, that's people are suffering. Right now, unfortunately, I think the perpetrators are getting treated better than the victims, and we need to work on that.
I want to talk about one of the more visible issues in our community. Back in the spring, we held a town hall to talk about the Parkway Bridge and solutions. And since then, there's been some progress on it. But starting with Legislator Kinne, what do you see as the best and ultimate solution to changing the Parkway and the bridge, and how the relationship of various levels of government might have to come together to get that done?
Well, I wish the bridge could be raised, but it can't. So why don't we raise the road? So instead of whatever it is now, 10.2, let's make it 8 feet. And that way the trucker is going to see going down. They're going to see it. Hey, I can't get under that bridge. Because they're obviously not paying attention to the signs. And their GPS from they're out of town doesn't know what's going on. But raising the road, to me, would be the simplest thing to solve the problem.
You're not saying raise it over the bridge.
No.
But make it even tighter.
Make it even tighter.
Interesting.
That's a bold philosophy.
County Executive, what is your thought? It's not your direct concern, but yet it is.
Yeah, I think, well, the Parkway is dangerous before the bridge. And so the data shows that. It's next to the lake, very few barriers. So what we can do, we can actually do two things at once. First, you're never going to be able to govern stupid. And so there will still be individuals that don't read or have language barriers that don't read and will still hit that bridge. But if you can actually make it harder and less desirable to move fast through that corridor, I think that will have an impact. So by narrowing the lanes and creating traffic calming measures, that could be a deterrent. And at the same time, will create opportunities for us to finish the Loop the Lake Trail on the east side. So I do think that will help. But I do think, Matt, if we do this, there's always going to be a couple cases where the undefeated bridge remains undefeated in its task with the vehicles that hit it. But there are, if you look at who's hitting the bridge, there are language barriers there at times with some of the drivers. But certainly it's something that there's not a great solution unless you wanted to look at shutting the whole parkway down and look at giving that to the county's park system.
We're starting to get to the end of tonight's discussion, you know, and as we were preparing for this debate, we were thinking about titles for politicians. And there are some that are pretty prestigious and really familiar to anybody on the street.
Oh, yeah. I think of president, specifically President of the United States. Sure. There are senators, there are mayors.
What about county executive?
It doesn't flow off the tongue like the others. It really, there's a couple of barriers to presenting that.
How many times do you get called Mayor McMahon? Does that happen?
Well, being the fourth county executive, I can assure you that there's a lot of overlap between, it's the mayor, it's the county executive. I know Ben gets the same.
How do you explain the job, I guess is the real
I think
question.
the public got a sense of what the job really takes during COVID. Where the individual running the public health response for not just Onondaga County but all of Central New York was the county executive. And we had to build those partnerships, not just with Onondaga County, we built them with all of our surrounding counties and helped each other out for medical infrastructure. And we're on TV every day taking very difficult questions and giving very difficult and painful news every day. And so I think people understand the role of how important the county executive is. The title is not as cool as some of these other titles, to your point.
Maybe that could change down the road. Legislator Kinne, the job of county executive, you sat in this room, you've both sat in this room and dealt with other county executives and the legislative process. What is the job? What is the job?
Well, first of all, I've never been in titles, to me, are ridiculous. I'm just a person trying to be a good county legislator. And if I'm lucky enough to win the election, if the voters pick me, I'll just do my best job to be a good county executive. You have to form partnerships. You have to work with other people. You don't always have to be the top gun and ram things through. You got to work with people, listen to them. You have to form partnerships. That's the job of a county executive. You know, the county executive was on TV during COVID all the time. I thought that was a little bit overboard myself. You know, and I think unfortunately, he paid a heavy price for it with his own health. You know, we had the governor on, other people that could have come on, like the health director, more often. So, I mean, I just think being the county executive, you have to form good partnerships and work with the private sector and the public sector.
Sounds like you believe the job should be a more behind-the-scenes, less public role?
I've never been one
whether there was COVID or not?
I've never been one to look for the publicity. I don't crave it. I don't want it. I just want to do a good job.
Michael, I think it's important that people understand the the question that I was asked was a little different than your question. You're responsible for a $1.5 billion budget. You manage a workforce of over 3,000 people. You have the complexities of dealing with different elected officials in that same county government. And then your job is to set a roadmap, a financial plan, but also a plan and a vision for the community. And your job and the people expect you to lead. And there's no leading from behind in a McMahon administration.
Those are the questions we have for you today, which brings us to the wrap-up, and that begins with County Executive McMahon and some final thoughts, your closing arguments.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody at CNY Central for the conversation today. But I think it's reflective of the state of where we really stand at this opportunity. No one was suggesting that this community was not run well during a global pandemic that took out a president of the United States and a governor of the state of New York. No one has suggested that we in county government are not cutting property taxes, because we have 28% of the county tax rate since I've been county executive. No one has suggested that we are not doing a good enough job creating economic opportunity, because we have set historic partnerships, building historic economic opportunities. We have been through a lot together. And at the same time, these partnerships between us and you are driving extremely successful results. Jobs, opportunity, pathways out of poverty. The future is bright. The Onondaga County comeback is real when you look at the data. JMA Wireless, Amazon, TTM Technologies today, Micron. It is here for us to execute on moving forward. This is our Erie Canal moment. We are ready for it, and we are just getting started. And I ask for your vote and your support through early voting and on November 7th. Thank you.
Legislator Kinne, your closing remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us here. I appreciate the opportunity. The voters do have a choice this year, because I decided to run. And there's a stark difference between me and the county executive. I'm not going to deny that some positive things have happened, but I want you to look at the whole picture. I want you to look at $6,000 of your money that was spent on making a promotional video that even this paper called him out on after a while. I want you to look at the transparency. I want you to look at what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it. Even the Republican legislature was against the aquarium. 3 members voted against it. So it's just not Bill Kinne being a Democrat being against it. 3 Republican legislators voted against it. He wasn't able to sell it to his Republican colleagues. He's not able to sell it to the community. This is a lot of money that we're spending on an aquarium that has dubious results. He can talk about the study all he wants, but in reality, aquariums lose money. I'm about helping people. I'm about working with people. I'm not going to jam things down your throat. I'm going to explain to you what's going on. And I certainly will not work from behind the scenes. I just don't need to be in the limelight. I want to work with the business sector. I want to work with the private sector. I want to work with the voters to get them to understand this is a great community. We can move forward. And if you give me the opportunity to be your county executive, I promise you that I will not tell half-truths. I will be transparent, and I'll work very hard to get the job done for the people of this county. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I hope you'll consider me during this early voting period and election day. And thank you all again, and God bless you.
Thank you, Legislator Kinne. Thank you, County Executive
Thank
McMahon.
you. We just got word from our meteorologist, Peter Hall. It's November 1st. We saw some snow flying today. Just one final wrap-up question here. Bill Kinne, when an out-of-town guest comes, how do you describe Syracuse's weather to make them want to come back again? This is a challenge. It's a real challenge. Well, 15 seconds.
I went to Arizona school for the last 2 years. I came back because my parents were sick and because I love Central New York. Look, our falls are beautiful. You don't have that in Arizona. I mean, the weather's going to change. Some people say it changes in a minute. But, we have a lot of opportunity here in all 4 seasons. And I just tell them, don't give up. Just don't judge me one day.
Ryan McMahon, you've had to answer this question.
Yeah, I have. What other community can you wear shorts one week and then a week later be wearing your snowsuit? So, but certainly our Four Seasons can be hindrances. It's important we market that, but they're also strengths. And I think a lot of the conversation today was about year-round entertainment infrastructure, how important that is for workforce to be able to develop, recruit, and retain. That's why you invest in these types of infrastructure projects for quality of life, because we do have Four Seasons and people need things to do.
And everybody smiles at the end. I think we've done a good job.
That's right.
I think we've done a good
You know,
job.
by the way, a reminder, early voting is already underway. You have from tomorrow till Sunday to cast your ballot early. Check our website for designated polling locations and hours. Polls will open statewide Election Day at 6 a.m. on Tuesday.
Very good. I know for a fact that those watching tonight learned something about our community, and I think that's probably the most important thing. Thank you so much for being with us here for the CMY Central debate in the race for Onondaga County Executive. I'm Michael Benny.
For Megan Coleman, I'm Matt Mulcahy. Have a great night.